Hi, this is Remembering the Past, the show where we talk about people who've died recently who've had a profound effect on our history, our society, or our culture. We're going to have a wide range of subjects tonight, and one of our themes is going to be classical to popular music, and that's why we're starting off with a brief mention of Van Williams, who died recently at the age of 82. Van Williams was a good-looking guy from Texas. He was teaching scuba diving in Waikiki, and a guy approached him who said he might be Hollywood material. That turned out to be Mike Todd before he died in the plane crash. And that opened doors for Van Williams to work in television in Hollywood in some of those schlock series that ABC put together to compete with NBC and CBS in the early 60s, like Surfside 6 and Bourbon Street Beat. Like I say, Van Williams was good looking, but he wasn't much of an actor, but his career turned on one role in 1966. ABC was hoping to capitalize on the popularity of Batman, and they created a second series based on a superhero, the Green Hornet. Van Williams played the Green Hornet with his sidekick KATO. His alter ego was newspaper publisher Britt Reed, who in comic book lore was a distant relative of the Lone Ranger. Van Williams was sort of wooden, and the series didn't do very well, only lasted one season. They had a couple of crossovers with Batman, and in one, KATO and the Green Hornet fight with Batman and Robin, and it was essentially the highlight of Van Williams' acting career. But it was famous for three things. It had a really neat-looking car called the Black Beauty. It was the debut of Bruce Lee as KATO, and you can see him in some great fighting scenes in The Green Hornet, which were a preview of things to come for him. The series became quite popular in Hong Kong, with KATO as the star. And finally, the Green Hornet theme song, which was a jazz reworking of The Flight of the Bumblebee by Rimsky-Korsakov, performed by Al Hurt. Going to move into sports with Rashaan Salaam, who died recently at the age of 42. He was the greatest running back in University of Colorado history, might have been their greatest player. Won the 1994 Heisman Trophy, and he played on the team with Michael Westbrook and Cordell Stewart, and they finished number 3 in the country. Here's Colorado Television on Rashaan Salaam.
With some very sad breaking news, former CU football star and Heisman Trophy winner Rashaan Salaam has been found dead in a park in Boulder. Salaam, the only player ever to have won a Heisman at the University of Colorado. Denver 7's Molly Hendrickson.
Salaam is an icon around the campus. Flowers now lie next to his Heisman Trophy, which is displayed in the Champion Center. He was the only CU player to receive the trophy in 1994 when he rushed for 2,055 yards and 24 touchdowns.
Denver 7 sports director Lionel Bienvenu.
Yeah, Shannon, his legacy is pretty simple. The best running back and arguably the best player in CU football history. The only Heisman Trophy winner, as we said, in school history. That 1994 season ran for over 2,000 yards, led the Buffs to an 11-1 season. There's been none better before or since.
Here's the long touchdown run that many people say won him the Heisman Trophy. It put him over 2,000 yards for the season.
Here is the give to Salaam. Salaam to the outside. He's down to the 50. He's got 2,000. He's on his way. 20, 15, 10, 5. Did he get in? Yes, touchdown. This place is coming apart. Rashaan Salaam, whole team goes down. What a story. He goes over 2,000 by running 67 yards for a touchdown.
He was drafted number 1 by the Bears and was actually NFC Rookie of the Year in 1995, but the problem was he was a straight-up runner, hit holes quickly, and in Colorado the holes were big, and in the pros, especially with the Bears, the holes weren't that big. So with his upright running style, it meant he had to take a lot of hits. He didn't get the long gains. He tended to fumble because of all the hits he took. He had a little problem with marijuana, and he never really panned out being a number 1 draft choice. But as the report said, he's a legend forever in Colorado history. We're going to move on now to Alan Thicke, who died recently at the age of 69. He was the Canadian actor who was prominent on television. He was the father in the 1980 series Growing Pains. Not a great show in my mind, but he was the typical 80s television dad. And he had a failed talk show for a while. He was ubiquitous on commercials and all over television. Here's the Wall Street Journal on Alan Thicke.
Alan Thicke, star of the hit 1980 sitcom Growing Pains, died at 69 in Los Angeles Tuesday.
Your mother went to a lot of trouble defrosting that chicken.
Thicke is best known for his role as the father on Growing Pains. The ABC sitcom aired for 7 seasons, from 1985 to 1992. His character, Dr. Jason Seaver, is among the most beloved TV dads of all time. Before Growing Pains, Thicke began his career as a popular Canadian talk show host. He was also a composer of theme songs for several TV shows, including Wheel of Fortune and Different Strokes. His acting career continued after Growing Pains. Thicke starred in his own reality show, Unusually Thicke, focusing on his family life. He made cameo appearances on several series, including How I Met Your Mother, Netflix's Fuller House, and recent Golden Globe nominee This Is Us. In 2013, he was inducted into Canada's Walk of Fame.
Here's the Growing Pains theme song, sung by B.J. Thomas and Jennifer Warnes, two of my favorites.
Show me that smile, show me that smile. Don't waste another minute on your crying. We're over near the end. The best is ready to begin. As long as we got each other, we got the world spinning right in our hands, baby, you and me. We gotta be the luckiest dreamers.
And here's Alan Thicke talking about how he got the gig.
I was just coming off one of the great failures in the history of talk shows. That was Thick of the Night. I was just so thrilled. I didn't care if the script was any good. I was just happy to have something to do for a week. And in fact, I was doing what I had started my career doing, and that was as a writer. I was in pitching a show to ABC. They were developing it. They liked the idea, and they said, but by the way, we have this other show that we haven't found a male lead for yet, and they could maybe use an Alan Thicke type. And I said, well, I happen to be available. Otherwise, I was going to be driving the Zamboni for the Kings that year, so I was very happy to get the call. I remember when I finally got the part, bursting into tears in the parking lot and phoning my two young boys instantly, and just basically feeling that now I'd be able to take care of them.
Our feature tonight is Greg Lake, who died recently at the age of 69, English bassist and guitarist, progressive rock guy, who was part of two big 70s bands, Emerson, Lake and Palmer and King Crimson. Here's Matthew Bannister from the BBC4 on Greg Lake.
Bass player, guitarist and singer Greg Lake was a member of two of the most influential bands of the 1970s. He teamed up with Robert Fripp in King Crimson and with Keith Emerson and Carl Palmer in Emerson, Lake and Palmer. The trio's fusion of progressive rock and classical music sold 48 million albums, with titles like Tarkus, Brain Salad Surgery, and Pictures at an Exhibition. The broadcaster Bob Harris made a film about ELP in the 1970s.
He was a really, really good-looking guy, had true charisma, was a great bass player, and could also kind of use the bass guitar as a double-up for a lead guitar. Greg's role in terms of sort of filling the sound and expanding the sound was extremely important.
The rusty chains of prisoners are shattered by the sun.
Greg got involved in the idea of getting this band underway, King Crimson. This is post Sgt. Pepper, so the idea of creating album concepts was now in vogue. It was an opportunity for bands like the Beatles, Pink Floyd, Soft Machine, King Crimson to take an album as a palette, which could be wide-ranging in its colours, in its experimentation. Greg was at the vanguard of the explosion of what then was becoming known as progressive rock. Emerson, Lake and Palmer were immediately different from most of the other bands emerging from the British music scene at the time.
We actually met at Bill Graham's Fillmore West in San Francisco. On the bill at the time were the Chambers Brothers, The Nice and King Crimson. We met up, as artists do, in the bar for a drink afterwards, and we started chatting. We decided after that to form a band together.
ELP drummer Carl Palmer.
Greg, obviously had been a bass player in King Crimson, So he came into ELP as a bass player and playing acoustic guitar. I mean, his real talent is songwriting, singing, and playing acoustic guitar, kind of a folk singer-esque type of person. I think he played bass because he was asked to in King Crimson, and it stuck with him, so he carried on playing it. And when we needed guitar lines, though they were quite simple and we didn't have many, Greg would pick up the lead guitar and play the necessary for us. The band was known as a progressive rock band, this being an English art form. But if it wasn't for Greg Lake's songs, such as Still You Turn Me On, From the Beginning, C'est la Vie, Lucky Man, Footprints in the Snow, these were all tracks which went into the top 10 in America, and hits in Europe as well. And without those particular songs, I don't think that the radio would have got that deep into the music unless we had that as a door opener, as it were.
There might have been things I missed, but don't be unkind. It don't mean I'm blind.
Most of the bands that you can think of, and this includes the Beatles and the Stones and the Kinks and the Who, their musical inspiration was coming from America. Largely, it was coming from blues, R&B, or it was coming from country, Buddy Holly, Jerry Lee Lewis. Not so with Emerson, Lake and Palmer.
As much as I hate it, the term prog rock, progressive music, that's what it is. It takes its influence from European music. And so Keith and I both came from that same background.
We're going to get your pictures at an exhibition.
They were looking into classical construction, making classical music into rock. And that's what they did, and they were unique in doing that at the time. I love pictures at an exhibition. I love the music they made in the mid-1970s as well. I mean, the time around Theme for the Common Man.
We went to Switzerland. We recorded in Montreux. We hadn't seen each other for about 3 months. We started jamming on a piece by Aaron Copland called Fanfare for the Common Man. And we didn't know, but there was a chap that used to work for the BBC who was the engineer. And in his uncanny sort of way, as it were, he had recorded us jamming on one microphone hanging from the ceiling. When we came to try and record Fanfare as a group, it wasn't great. John Timpley, the engineer, turned around and said, I did this recording when you've turned up 3 months ago when you hadn't seen each other, and this is what we've got. And we listened to it, and immediately Greg got it before Keith or I. He said, that's got to be the one. There's a certain amount of magic on that. We've got to use it. Greg heard it instantaneously, and that's what he was good at.
To realise the classical music expression of the ideas they had, they hired for a big American tour in '77 a 120-piece orchestra. Financially, it was catastrophic for them because the cost of taking all these musicians round. But it was a wonderful thing because they were enlisting young classical players who were just thrilled to be part of this incredible expression and experiment that the Emerson, Lake and Palmer music had now become.
If you wanted to have a band and you wanted to have a singer that was as versatile and as talented, Greg Lake would definitely come top of the list. He wasn't really big on being a solo artist. He would do that, but he enjoyed being part of a unit.
He had white horses and ladies by the score.
One of Greg's great legacies is, I believe, in Father Christmas.
It was kept off the top spot by Bohemian Rhapsody.
Yes, that was very unfortunate for him because he would have had a #1 single.
The sentiment of the song is so kind, and I think that's what Greg was. He was kind, he was gentle, he was a bit of a devil, but he was just a fantastic, wonderful person.
Well, I'm recording this show around Christmas, so we have to play that classic by Greg Lake. I Believe in Father Christmas might be the best Christmas song in the last 50 years. Certainly better than that dreck that John Lennon and Paul McCartney put out.
I believed in Father Christmas. I looked to the sky with excited eyes. I woke with a yawn in the first light of dawn. I saw him through his disguise.
close on that note, I want to thank my producer and IT genius, Sid Tepps. And Greg Lake took the theme for I Believe in Father Christmas from classical music, the Troika movement of the film score from Lieutenant Kijé by Sergei Prokofiev.